the YouTube stream is live. All right, so now we will start. Now that people who are, we've given people 3 options of attending the symposia, and all 3 options like are up, and I see people are on each option, so that's good. I know there are restrictions for people using Zoom and other means, so I appreciate everybody bearing with me and making sure that everybody can participate and see as needed. And so I'd just like to welcome everybody to the 14th annual SCP&T Symposium. It's a little bit different than what we envisioned when we were planning this out earlier this year, but we hope you will enjoy it. It was a different and a good learning experience for us to go through this. Hopefully next year we won't, we'll be able to do it in person, but this year we'll have it virtually, which actually has allowed for attendance by a different, well, by a larger crowd of people, and I think we're appreciative for that. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of kind of ground rules and just background about things, and I think I'm not sharing right now my screen, but that's okay. I want to get everything ready. And so, as I mentioned, we're a little bit different this year. Normally we're meeting outside at Slack on the campus of Stanford. It's actually pretty lovely day today. Lovely day as normal. But this time we'll have attendance here via webinar. And so I welcome you, the webinar attendees. We'll go over some background about using Zoom webinar just to help you guys facilitate your enjoyment of the conference. It's a little bit different than Zoom meetings. You'll notice that you don't have video that you're sharing. You don't have audio that you can't speak into things, but you can ask questions, and there's a question panel, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. There are people who are watching it on live stream on YouTube. It's unlisted, but with that link, if you kind of have to go away, you can come back and watch it later. We'll try to keep it up for about a week. And so it's available that way as well. So we hope you can enjoy this symposium, and even if you can't stay for the whole thing, you can watch some of it later as well. I know some of you guys are in Europe, and some of you might be in China, and it's pretty late for y'all. So we're offering all these different options. I'd like to begin by also thanking our sponsors, Lockheed, L3 Harris, and Boeing, for sponsoring SCP&T, sponsoring the symposium, the 14th annual one, in fact, and sponsoring our students. And we appreciate the collaboration, the sponsorship, and the partnership with these companies. And we thank you very much for that. We'd also like to thank the speakers. This is again a different experience for everybody. I definitely know it's much harder without the feedback from the audience, and I appreciate all the speakers for agreeing to doing this and doing this via Zoom. It's fantastic. We've got a fantastic group of speakers from industry, academia, government, all sorts. And it's going to be a fun set of talks. We're going to talk about past and present of navigation. We're going to talk about remote operations on Earth, especially important during these times of COVID, remote operations in space. And we're going to talk about climate, big deal, especially for us in the West, where we're experiencing lots of fires. So it'll be a good variety of talks, and we hope you'll enjoy that. And so here's the program for today. Right now it's me and Todd, which can give, again, I'm going to give the technical logistical background about how we're going to run the symposium this year. It's a bit different than past years, and then Todd will give a little brief overview of the lab and some information about current status. Then we'll have then we'll start with the heart of the talk with Brad's talk on 10 critical hinge factors for GPS for humanity. So let me just go over a few quick guidelines. First thing, I'm just going to talk about how to do questions and answers. What you'll see on the bottom of your of your screen, for those people who are coming on the Zoom webinar, is a question and answer panel. That's how you're going to ask questions. Type it in. You can ask it. I'll talk a little bit more about that. What we will do is we'll try to make the slides and videos available on our website at a later date. We'll have to get speakers' permission for what we can and cannot show. Just for those people who are watching on webinar, sorry, on YouTube, it won't happen today, but tomorrow there are a few slides that can't be shown right now. They're reserved for a later conference, and so we're getting the stuff hot off the press, and so we're going to blank those out, and so there might be a gap in coverage. Just for a second, we'll give you a heads up warning about that. Shouldn't happen tomorrow. Today it'll happen tomorrow, so just be aware. Don't think there's a problem with the live stream. It's just we have to not stream that out because they want to present it at a later conference later this next month. But hopefully when we're able to put up the slides, they'll be there. And just remember, register tomorrow has a different link. You have to do a different registration. So don't use this link that you used today for tomorrow. Otherwise, you won't get to see very much. Asking questions. So Zoom webinar is a little bit different than Zoom meeting. Webinar attendees cannot vocally speak unless the host can individually grants that permission and unmutes them, and so it just makes it a lot easier so that background noise and other things don't accidentally filter through. And hopefully by having that helps the enjoyment of everybody of the talks. And so how do you do question and answer? Well, we do that through the question and answer panel, which you should see on the bottom of your screen. It says Q&A. You can pop that up. You can type your questions. You can do it either, you can do it with your name, which you registered with, or you can do it anonymously. If you do it anonymously, that's fine. The issue with doing it anonymously is if there's something unclear about the question, we don't know who to follow up with. But it's up to you. I understand. Sometimes we want to allow people to ask questions even they're a little bit shy about it. So please ask questions, ask away. What we're going to do is we're going to curate them. Actually, Todd's going to curate them primarily, and we're going to choose the questions to ask the panelists, the ones that make will probably come in the order that they're sent, but we'll curate them. We'll try to cut out repeats or similar questions. We'll try to kind of pull them into so that as many questions as possible are answered. Again, if there's really something that's unclear, I think there's a raise your hand feature that you can use, but again, we'll leave that to then. What we'll try to do is during the breaks, if the panelists will stay on, they may or may not, we'll figure out a way of asking. We can do more Q&A there, and I'll try to kind of manage that during the Q&A, during the breaks. The breaks, so talking about the breaks are purposely meant to be give you a little time to use the bathroom, do what you need, get a snack, whatever, but they're not meant to be too long. What we found with long breaks, people go off and they forget when it's going to start. So what we're going to do with the breaks is that there's enough time. We think that the talk from the previous time, even if they run over a little bit, they won't run over the break. And so so the talk after the break will start exactly at the time that it's stated in the schedule. Other talks, might run a little bit long or a little bit short, but we will start talks at the time stated right after the break. So that's all the logistics that I have. One more thing is I just want to thank you all for being here. A lot of you are friends, colleagues, collaborators, and whatnot, and alumni, and everything. We're so appreciative that you're here. We wish we could be doing this in person. Next year, we will strive to do that. We heard your feedback about it. One thing we'll do next year, regardless whether it's in person or via Zoom, is we'll have our student session. This year was a little bit challenging to kind of get all that stuff organized, but we heard a lot of responses that was something that people really liked, and we'll try to do a student session again. We'll do the student session next year. Again, thank you all for your support. We hope you enjoyed this this version of the symposium. It's a little bit different, but we hope you enjoy it. And now I'll turn it over to Todd, and I'll stop sharing my screen, or I'll just turn it on to our panel. Go ahead.
All right, well, thank you, Sherman. I'd like to add my welcome to everyone as well. We're glad to have everyone attending, even if it's through the virtual portal and instead of what we normally are able to do. I think a great value of these meetings is the interactions during the breaks, during the lunches, during the dinners, and unfortunately, this year that will not be a component of it. But hopefully, people can use the chat feature, can send emails and so forth, and next year for sure we will have a live component to this again. As Sherman said, unfortunately, one of the things we did lose was the student session, which is always popular. But we were worried that I think people are already suffering from Zoom fatigue, so we didn't want to have you sit through endless days of Zoom meetings, and unfortunately that was a casualty of this. But I've heard from many people that they enjoy that, they want that to continue, and so again, that will definitely be something we have next year. In addition to some of the obvious, there's been some other changes this year. So one thing that's happened is after a lengthy process, Stanford has named me a professor, which is a process I've received quite a bit of support from Brad, from Dave Powell, and now it puts me firmly in charge of the GPS lab. So all complaints, all issues come to me now. I'd definitely like to thank Dave Powell for filling in during the interim couple of years, and we've managed to keep the lab going fairly smoothly, I think. I also want to thank the students who went through the whole transition period here. Many of them have graduated, and you'll be hearing from Tyler later on to see what many of them are doing now. One other thing is that Tom Langenstein, who's been long running the symposium, has turned it over to Sherman now. We'll still have access to Tom. He's agreed to consult and help us out, but Sherman was handed over the reins for the symposium shortly before COVID made that an extra large challenge. So I'd really like to thank Sherman quite a bit for all the work he's done to make the symposium happen. It's been quite a challenge. He's had to really adapt to something different, and he's done a heroic job. The one thing, as you see, that has not changed at all is that we have excellent speakers, and I think you'll find that we have a set of very informative and entertaining talks. If you saw on the schedule there, you saw at the end of today, hopefully people can stay on. We have a tribute to David Last. So unfortunately, we lost David last December. And for those of you who knew David, he was a very special person, to all of us and to the symposium. When the symposium first started, he was our very first dinner speaker. If you've ever heard David speak, you were in for an enormous treat. I remember back in 1993, I was just transitioning from my PhD to be much more GPS heavy research, and sat down to listen to David speak, and I had no idea at that time what I was in for. And the topic he spoke about was outfitting GPS receivers onto sheep. And this was 1993, so they were not in cell phones, they were not in cars. I think people were just talking about using them for hiking, for surveying, for some very staid applications. And David's concern was this was not terribly long after the Chernobyl incident. There's some fallout that was affecting patches in fields in England, and they were trying to identify where this fallout had collected. And this is in the day of very large GPS receivers, and he managed to shrink them down, get them outfitted on sheep, have a jaw sensor on the sheep so he knew where the sheep were eating grass, and start to locate these patches so they could do something about it. And it was an amazing talk, both technically, because again, no one was doing anything like that at the time. I'd never seen a talk even remotely like that. But it was also part stand-up comedy routine, because if you know David Last, he's very, very entertaining in his speaking. And so we rapidly, for the symposium, brought him on as a dinner speaker. When we had the GNSS conferences, he was frequently a very popular plenary speaker. And it's a tremendous loss to the GNSS community, because the number of things he did technically were outstanding. The talks he gave have to be the most entertaining technical talks I've ever seen. And he was also just an excellent educator and a communicator and a very good friend. And so hopefully people stay on at the end, and we'll hear a few more tributes to David last.